The first rays of morning light filtered through the carved lattice windows of the royal palace, casting patterns like molten gold across the marble floors. King Devendra sat upon his throne, dressed in simple white robes instead of the heavy ornaments of court. His face was calm, but his mind was alert and quietly troubled. For months now, he had watched his ministers, men once noble, wise, and humble, grow careless under the comfort of success. They had begun to take shortcuts, to value appearances over substance. Their decisions, once guided by principle, were now swayed by pride and convenience. The kingdom was flourishing, yes, but the king knew that prosperity built on neglect was fragile. He sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant call of the temple bells. Then, he smiled faintly, as though an idea had just crystallized in his mind. A lesson must be taught, not with punishment, but with experience. Summon Arjun, Bhaskar, and Charan, he commanded the court attendant. Tell them their king wishes to speak with them at once. Within minutes, the three ministers entered the grand hall, bowing deeply before the throne. Arjun, the eldest, was tall and dignified, his gray-streaked hair and calm eyes marking him as a man of discipline. Bhaskar, the second, carried himself with confidence, his smile easy but his eyes restless, always calculating. Charan, the youngest, was jovial and carefree, the kind of man who could turn even the gravest meeting into laughter. You have each served me faithfully, said the king, his tone steady. But wisdom must be tested, for it fades without challenge. Tomorrow, you will accompany me to the royal orchard. There, each of you will be given a simple task. The way you fulfill it will determine your future in my court. The three exchanged glances, curiosity flickering in their eyes. None dared to ask questions. They bowed again, accepting the king's words as law, though each left the hall wondering what test awaited them. The next morning was bright and clear. The orchard stretched like an emerald sea beyond the palace walls, rows upon rows of mango, guava, and pomegranate trees heavy with fruit. Dew still clung to the leaves as the king arrived, flanked by his guards and the three ministers. Birds sang in the branches, and the sweet scent of ripening fruit drifted through the air. The king stepped forward and gestured to three servants, who brought out baskets woven from palm leaves. Each was identical, simple, sturdy, large enough to hold a good harvest. He handed one to each minister. Go now, said the king. Walk through the orchard and fill your basket with the best fruits you can find. Bring it back to me by sunset. That is all I ask. The ministers bowed once more, each masking his confusion in a polite smile. Then they went their separate ways, disappearing into the green maze of the orchard. Arjun walked slowly between the trees, his fingers brushing over the fruit-laden branches. He paused before each tree, examining the color, the texture, the firmness of the fruit before plucking it. His hands moved with care and respect, as though the orchard itself were sacred. The king never acts without reason, he thought. This is not about fruit, it is about diligence. Every piece he picked, he inspected, making sure it was ripe but not overripe, smooth but not soft. His pace was steady but deliberate. Bhaskar, on the other hand, started with enthusiasm but soon grew impatient. After all, the orchard was vast, and the sun was hot. He looked at Arjun in the distance, still examining each fruit like a scholar with a manuscript, and shook his head. What difference does it make? He muttered. The king won't look inside every basket. He'll see how full it is and that will be enough. So he began to pick more quickly, tossing fruit into his basket without much thought. Some were fresh, others had small bruises. To him, quantity was victory. By midday, his basket was nearly full, and he decided to rest under the shade of a large mango tree. Charan strolled through the orchard with a wide grin, plucking a fruit here and there, eating one, tossing another aside. His laughter echoed among the trees. The king must be testing our obedience, not the fruit itself, he reasoned. It's the act of following orders that matters, not how well we do it. He noticed that fallen fruits covered the ground, some overripe, others half-eaten by birds, and thought it a fine shortcut. He bent down and scooped them up, filling his basket in no time. Wormholes, cracks, and rot didn't bother him. No one's going to eat them anyway, he chuckled, slinging his basket over his shoulder. The day was still young, so he lay back in the grass, hands behind his head, and watched the clouds drift by. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, and the air grew thick with the scent of ripening fruit. Arjun's shirt clung to his back with sweat, but his resolve didn't waver. He took pride in his task, no matter how simple it seemed. A man's worth, he murmured, is shown not by what he does, but by how he does it. By late afternoon, the three men returned to the palace gates, their baskets full. Arjun's fruit gleamed like jewels in the fading sunlight, each piece chosen with precision. Bhaskar's basket was abundant but uneven, good mixed with bad, fine with flawed. Sharan's was a mess of decay, some fruits leaking juice, others already blackened at the edges. The king awaited them at the edge of the courtyard, hands clasped behind his back. He examined the baskets briefly, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded to the guards. "Seal these baskets," he ordered. "Do not open them until I command." The guards tied the baskets shut with thick cords and sealed them with wax. The three ministers looked puzzled. They expected praise, or perhaps judgment, but the king offered neither. Instead, he spoke softly, yet with a tone that carried to every corner of the courtyard. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will embark on a journey beyond the borders of this kingdom. Each of you will carry the basket you filled today. The fruits within will serve as your provisions until you return." A silence settled over them. Bhaskar frowned, uncertain. Sharan's easy smile faltered. Arjun bowed his head, his mind already piecing together the lesson hidden in the king's words. "Rest well," the king said finally. "For tomorrow, your journey begins, and your baskets will reveal what kind of men you truly are." As the three ministers departed, the evening light turned crimson over the palace walls. In the quiet of the courtyard, the sealed baskets stood like silent witnesses to the choices made that day, choices that would soon define not just a journey, but three destinies. The next morning, the palace courtyard was bathed in pale gold as the three ministers stood before King Devendra once again. Their baskets, still sealed, rested beside them. The king regarded them silently, the faintest hint of a knowing smile on his lips. Then he spoke, his voice calm and firm, carrying the weight of both authority and wisdom. "Today," he said, "you will travel beyond the kingdom's borders. The road will be long, the terrain harsh, and your only provisions will be the fruits you gathered yesterday. Let your own hands feed you." Arjun bowed solemnly, understanding the deeper meaning behind those words. Bhaskar swallowed hard, unease flickering in his eyes. Sharan forced a grin, trying to shake off his growing discomfort. "Of course, my king," he said lightly, "your servants are ready for whatever journey awaits." The king nodded, turning away. "Go, and may your choices guide your fate." And so, as the sun rose fully over the horizon, the three men set out on horseback, their sealed baskets secured behind them. The road stretched endlessly, winding through fields and forests, past rivers that glistened like mirrors in the morning light. For the first few hours, the journey was easy. The air was cool, and the rhythm of hooves striking the earth filled the silence between them. Sharan laughed and sang as if on a pleasure ride. Bhaskar occasionally glanced at his basket, his thoughts uneasy. Arjun rode in quiet reflection, his face calm but focused. By midday, the sun grew fierce, and thirst began to gnaw at them. When they stopped to rest beneath the shade of a banyan tree, the king's soldiers who accompanied them opened the seals on their baskets. "You may eat now," said the captain. Arjun carefully lifted the lid of his basket. A fresh, sweet aroma wafted into the air. The fruits inside were as perfect as the moment he'd picked them, ripe, clean, and glistening with natural juices. He picked one and bit into it, savoring its sweetness. Gratitude filled his heart. His hard work, his patience, his care, they had all preserved what mattered most. Beside him, Bhaskar opened his basket and frowned. Half the fruits were good, but many were bruised, soft, or beginning to rot. He picked through them, separating the edible from the spoiled, and managed a small meal. It was enough to quiet his hunger, but the bitter taste of regret lingered stronger than the fruit's sweetness. Sharan, however, laughed as he opened his basket, until the stench hit him. The fruits he had carelessly gathered had turned to mush, their skins blackened, crawling with flies and worms. The foul smell made him gag. He slammed the lid shut, his face twisting in disgust. "Oh, this is ridiculous," he shouted. "How could anyone eat this? These fruits were fine yesterday." Arjun looked at him quietly. "They were not fine when you picked them, Sharan. You chose carelessness over effort. The king's test was never about fruit, it was about the kind of man you are." Bhaskar wiped his brow, staring down at his own basket. "He's right," he admitted softly. I thought I was being clever. I told myself balance mattered more than perfection. But now I see that half effort yields half reward. Charon said nothing. His pride stung worse than his hunger. That night, as they camped near a stream, the soldiers built a fire and rested. Arjun shared some of his good fruits with Bhaskar, who accepted them with gratitude. Charon, too ashamed to ask, went hungry. He stared at his sealed basket, knowing it held nothing but decay. The days passed, and the journey grew harder. The forests turned into rocky hills, and the path became steep and unforgiving. The sun blazed by day, the cold bit deep by night. Arjun continued to eat sparingly from his basket, keeping enough for each day. His energy remained steady, his spirit calm. Bhaskar's supply dwindled quickly as more of his fruit spoiled, but he managed to endure, learning humility with every bite of the bad fruit he had once ignored. Charon grew weak. His once bright laughter had turned into bitter silence. On the fourth day, he stumbled while walking and fell to his knees. His lips were cracked, his face pale. "I can't go on," he muttered, clutching his stomach. Arjun stopped and helped him up. "This is what our choices do, Charon," he said gently. "You thought the task was small, that no one would notice. But every careless act builds a chain, and one day, you must bear its weight." Charon looked at him, tears in his eyes. "I understand now. I mocked the task, but it was my own future I was mocking." Bhaskar handed him a bruised fruit from his own basket. "Take this. It's not much, but it will help you reach the end. Maybe this is my chance to correct one small mistake." The three continued onward, the lessons of the road carving themselves into their hearts more deeply than any words could. When at last they returned to the palace after several exhausting days, the king awaited them in the courtyard, just as he had when they began. He looked upon their weary faces, their tattered clothes, their near-empty baskets. "Tell me," he said, "what have you learned from your journey?" Arjun bowed low. "My lord," he said, "I learned that diligence in even the smallest tasks is never wasted. Every act, no matter how simple, is a seed for the future. Those who plant care will harvest strength." Bhaskar, standing beside him, said, "I learned that trying to balance right and wrong leads to weakness. I thought cleverness could replace discipline, but it only brought me half the reward." Then Charon stepped forward, his voice trembling. "I learned that mocking the duty given to us is mocking our own destiny. I filled my basket with carelessness and pride, and in return, I